One of the hardest things was to find an appropriate accommodation during my stay for 9 months. Hi, I am Sanya, pursuing my PhD from IIT Delhi. I was a Fulbright doctoral researcher at Columbia University, and I am here with another video discussing in detail what were the challenges that I faced living in the US. While it's very daunting to find accommodation, but I can assure you that if you're very persistent, you are definitely going to find one. However, there are a few things which you should have in mind when you are house hunting. The first thing you should look is that your university should be close to where you live. And how do you find that out? Is that if you are taking a house tour online, you ask them for the exact zip code, and then you see the distance on Google Maps or on City Mapper. City Mapper is an app which will even tell you how can you travel by public transport if you need to use it. For example, I know a lot of people who studied at Columbia University but lived in, say, Jersey City or Brooklyn and commuted every day. I would not recommend a long commute because then you would spend a lot of time and also money. It's better to spend that money on your accommodation but stay closer to campus, because then you will have access to more resources. Something that's very important is that you should not be very far from the subway line. I would not say like more than 3 to 4 blocks, and also try to live closer to the subway line or the metro which goes directly to your university. Ask your landlord whether there is a laundry and a dryer in your home. In my case, for example, there was a laundry and a dryer in the basement, but still I had to put quarter coins for every wash. So for example, for every wash I required $1.5, which was 6 quarter coins, and for every drying cycle I required 4 quarter coins, which was about $1. Dryer is basically a machine where you put in your clothes and your clothes come out dry. It was a very new concept for me. You should know what is the exact setting that you should put when you are putting your clothes for drying, because otherwise your clothes would be wet, and according to New York City laws, you cannot hang your clothes outside your window to soak them. You get quarter coins from your bank. So if you go to your bank and if you, with your card of course, you tell them you need quarters, so they'll give you a stack of quarters worth $10. That's the easiest way to get quarters. I used to walk from one shop to the other shop requesting them, begging them if they have quarters, I'll buy something, and if they could give me change so that I could do my laundry. But then later some friends told me that you don't have to do that, you can go to your bank and get quarter coins. If you do not have a laundry in your building or in your flat or in your apartment, then make sure how far the laundry is, because New York mostly, and I would say actually most of the US houses may not necessarily have a lift. And if you're living in a city like New York where you could live, say, on the 4th floor, you don't want to walk like 10 blocks or 2 blocks with a huge laundry bag, even during harsh weather conditions, and then come back, spend your whole day, maybe 3 to 4 hours in the laundry place. That'll take up a lot of your time. So make sure this is something which you should not neglect. Ask your landlord what are the appliances that are there in the kitchen. A fridge is definitely a must, but you may not necessarily have, say, a microwave or toaster, etc., unless you already have people living in the house who are already using these items. But again, it's worth knowing whether these are communal items, whether you could use those items, or you'll have to get your own items. So a mixer grinder is something which my housemate's wife got from India, because sometimes we ground spices. Ask your landlord what are the maintenance issues that usually come up. Do they fix it immediately? If you live in apartments where the landlord is actually running a company, then they typically have a person who's called the super who fixes everything, as opposed to maybe a live-in landlord where I do not think they will have that kind of a service. Ask about the heating system. Is it central? Would you have control to change the temperature of your room? And also, when do they normally start the heating system? Because I've known friends who've lived in houses where the landlord has not really repaired the heating systems or not really switched on the heating systems in time. So it's always worth having a chat with your landlord about the heating system even after you reach the US and before the winter season begins. Ask your landlord is whether the rent is all inclusive. So typically it should include water and gas. Definitely it rarely includes electricity and Wi-Fi expenses, but your rent may include these as well. And if it does, it is a good idea, because you don't want to go there for a short term and then be stressed that, oh my god, you used to pay say $50 and then all of a sudden you have to pay $200 because of an increase in price. Ask the housemate to washroom ratio, which is very important. I would say it's good good to have not more than 2 people using one washroom, but you could say, okay, maybe let's say 3 people using one washroom, but not more than that. You could also look for en-suites where you have attached bathroom with your room, but it's highly unlikely that you'll find that place because usually such places are very expensive. If you're taking an online tour, of course, which I think most probably you would, if they show you your room, there are some things which you should definitely keep in mind. For example, you should ask them whether it's furnished, whether the bed, what size of a bed does it fit, is it a double, is it a queen size, is it a king size bed, so you'll have a better idea of how big the room is. One thing that I understood when I was hunting for houses in New York City was the rooms were very small, the windows weren't very huge. On top of that, they didn't really have closets, so all of the houses or rooms didn't necessarily have a cupboard or a closet where you could store your stuff, and so that is definitely a factor which you should keep in mind and ask your landlord or whosoever is giving you a house tour whether you have enough storage space to keep your clothes, books, or whatever items you have, even in the bathroom, whether there are racks for you to keep your toiletries, in the kitchen, or in the fridge, what's the space that you will get if you go there. It'll be nice to know whether you get enough sunlight or enough light in your room, because New York City houses are typically known for not having good windows, and even if there is a window, there might be another building next to you which will obstruct all light and fresh air. I'm not asking you to be a perfectionist, but I think these are just a few factors which you should keep in mind and ask your landlord when you're taking a house tour. And of course, it's up to you how you choose your house and how quiet is the street. Is it very noisy? Is it very quiet? If you have a pub or a restaurant or some kind of a bar near your house or just below your floor, it's highly likely that during weekends they'll play loud music, and it can get annoying. Ask whether there is a space to park a bike or a cycle if you do choose to take one, because it's always safe to have your cycle parked inside. You could also have it outside, but then make sure you buy a very good lock. You should also ask where is the main garbage place where everyone throws their garbage. Is it inside the stairway, because then it can cause bad smell? How wide is the stairway? How often are the common areas cleaned regularly? And if you already have housemates, you should be very interested in knowing who are the housemates, what do they do. It's worth having a word about your cleaning duties with them, also knowing what do they do. And what I've heard from people is that they prefer living with graduate students or with working professionals because they are clean and they are also quiet people, because undergraduates do have a habit of having house parties and they also don't keep the house clean. So sometimes some landlords do not want to give their houses to undergraduate students. Ask how far are the grocery stores from your house, which is very important, because it can be hard, again depending on which floor you live, it can be hard for you to get groceries if you're traveling too much, or if you have to walk a lot during groceries because there are no e-rickshaws over there. That's something that I missed a lot. Also, labor is very expensive, so you can't just ask someone, a shop guy, that you will pay them 100 or 200 rupees and they should take your stuff to your house. That's not happening. You have to do everything by yourself. So be prepared for that, which is why it is very important for you to ask where are the grocery stores, are they very close, and also the essential household items. Sometimes there are dollar stores, whether there are dollar stores around or thrift stores around, and how far are they. Sometimes people carry carts in which they take their groceries, but if you're going for a short term and if your housemates do not have a card, it's highly unlikely that you will buy a card because they are expensive. So do ask your landlord how safe the neighborhood is. I lived in Harlem, and something that I was bothered about was if Harlem is safe. The specific neighborhood where I lived, I found it very safe. However, I would caution you, if you live in Harlem, then avoid Park Street and Lexington Avenue, specifically streets 120 to 125, because they are not very safe. You'll see a lot of drugged people around. If you're living at Columbia University, if you live around that, Columbia University has a free cab service which drops you off to your house in the evening or during the odd hours, and avoid crossing the Morningside Park during odd hours and try to either take a different route or just take a bus. That's what I of videos by Cash Jordan. So Cash Jordan has a channel in which he gives you different tips on how do you house hunt in New York City and what's the budget and what could you expect in the given budget. So these were videos which were very helpful for me when I was hunting for houses. I'm sure you will also find it helpful. All the best, and I'm sure you'll have an excellent stay. Take care.